The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Hi, I'm Julia Putsies, an NTP and the founder of the Trash Panda app. And today on EverForward Radio, I'm talking about the health impact of ultra-processed foods and how to spot them at the grocery store.
What's the biggest lie the food industry has sold us, is trying to sell us right now in America?
The biggest lie is that you can eat ultra-processed foods and still be healthy. Big food companies are selling food-like products and they market them as healthy and they target consumer demands for different things. Right now, the big craze is high protein. So I saw high protein Pop-Tarts the other day that are starting to be sold. That is not a food that's ever going to be good for your health, no matter how much protein it has in it.
But I'm hitting my protein though.
Yeah, but you're also hitting chronic disease in the long term.
Damn.
So yeah, never trust the front of the package. Never trust the marketing claims. No matter what the trend is, they're going to be capitalizing on that. But ultimately, the ultra-processed foods are not going to get you where you want to be.
What's the one ingredient that should never be in our food, yet you see almost everywhere?
Seed oils. It's a hot topic and people are very controversial about it, but they're absolutely ubiquitous with ultra-processed food. So almost all packaged foods have canola oil, vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, rapeseed oil in them. And it's hard to separate out, like, is it the ultra-processed food and all the other ingredients in it? Is it the seed oils in that food? I think it's some combination of both. So it's a huge indicator that the food is ultra-processed, that it's cheaply processed. And no matter what you believe about seed oils, I think most people could be limiting their consumption of them and therefore eliminating their consumption of ultra-processed food.
Do you think as a whole, seed oils will eventually be proven objectively just horrible for humans to consume from a long-term health perspective?
I do. I think the way that they're processed is terrible, like chemically extracted and, things added to them. They are, highly oxidized when they sit on the shelf. They're just not a real whole food ingredient. So options like olive oil and, coconut oil and butter and things like that come from real whole food sources are always going to be the better option.
In your experience, what have you seen be the number one worst thing about seed oils in terms of what they're doing to our health? Are you seeing seed oils eventually cause this disease, this chronic illness, or we're seeing a higher prevalence of this disease linked back to frequent amounts consumption of seed oils?
Yeah, I just align seed oils with ultra-processed food. We're way over-consuming seed oils because they are in everything and they're in every packaged food. And our bodies do need, the thing about seed oils is they're high in omega-6. And we do need a certain amount of omega-6 in our bodies. We need a balance of omega-3 to omega-6 for optimal health. But because these seed oils are in everything, we're way over-consuming omega-6, which leads to chronic inflammation, which leads to those chronic health conditions in the long term. So I would say, yes, they absolutely are contributing to poor health outcomes, and reducing them is a good idea for everybody.
Why do you think certain chemicals are in fact banned in countries like Europe, but perfectly legal in American foods?
Because the American food system prioritizes profits over health. They're most concerned about making the most money, which means shelf-stable products, which means, cheap ingredients that keep foods on the shelf. Whereas in Europe, they prioritize the source of foods, whole foods, and the quality of those ingredients and where they come from. So I think it's a bit of a cultural thing, but bottom line, in the United States, it's about making money and maximizing those profits. And the food system is just another example of where that's failing us.
What's actually hiding behind the label natural flavors?
Hundreds of chemicals. And there's kind of a whole range of how bad they are. I would put artificial flavors at the top as the worst. Natural flavors kind of comes after that. If you can find foods that have organic natural flavors, those are even more fully regulated, meaning that they can only come from certain animal or plant sources. And then the very best of the best is seeing something like organic, natural strawberry flavor. So you know that that flavor originally came from a strawberry. But either way, these are chemically created ingredients, and they are going to be heightened versions of that flavor, which our taste buds can get, really our taste buds can get really used to those ingredients and then, become more addicted to them. So as a consumer, I would be careful about natural flavors. I wouldn't say you need to eliminate them entirely, but pay attention to where they're coming from, how much you're eating them, and how they might affect the taste of other foods that you consume.
Let's talk about the truth about food labels now and really unpack the confusion around modern food packaging and ingredients list. Why are food labels so misleading? Even for people who think, like you were kind of hinting at, they're buying healthy products.
Yeah. I mean, big food companies are out to make a profit. That's the first part. They are not here to help us be healthier. That's not their goal. Their goal is to make money off the food that they sell. But they know that consumers do, to some degree, care about their health and they want to eat healthier. And there's a lot of health trends that come along. You think about like veganism and vegetarianism and keto and a lot of trends that I think stem from people wanting to be healthier, want to do what's best for their health. And the big food companies see that and they want to capitalize on that, right? So if people are becoming vegan, they want to create products that they can sell that answer that desire or that call. But they're going to do it in the cheapest way possible and maximize the profits that they gain off of that. I think there's a lot of money to be made in consumer packaged goods, like foods that come in a package, right? Versus like foods that come from a farm. If you're buying an apple, if you're buying, vegetables, there's less of a profit margin to be made off of those products. And people want that convenience of something that's already made. We're all stressed. We're all crunched for time. We're all looking for things that are going to make our lives easier. So we're also demanding that convenience from the food market as well. So I think those things coming together, the focus on profits, trying to make as much money as possible, that means keeping products on shelves as long as possible so that they're shelf stable and they don't go bad and they don't lose money on, products that go to waste. And then capitalizing on those trends that people are going after so they can market to them. But, the outcome of that isn't what they're concerned about, right? Like the ultimate health of the consumer. They're concerned about like, what is the consumer going to buy? What can we sell them? What can we make the most profit off of and lose the least amount of money at the same time?
I want to circle back to misleading in my question. Do you think food companies, brands are intentionally misleading consumers with branding, wording, what they're saying, what they're not saying, even where things are on a product, on the front, on the back, in large print and fine print and small print, and click here to go actually get the print that we're supposed to tell you about? Why do you think brands are choosing to be misleading? And do you think it's actually intentional, even when they're trying to put out a air quote here, healthy product?
Yeah. In some ways, yes, I do think it's intentional. They want to sell you the product. So they're going to put forward the information that helps sell the product, right? So if that's like all natural, low fat, sugar free, whatever the consumer wants to, see on the package is what they're going to put on the front. And then they're not going to be super upfront about how they got there, right? About the sugar alcohols that are, in the product and what those do to your health. They're not going to be upfront about the things that they don't want you to see. They care about selling that product. I don't think it comes from a nefarious place. Like, I don't think they're trying to harm our health. Again, I just don't think their goal is to help us be healthier. Their goal is to sell products. So they want to capitalize on the consumer demand, sell something to consumers that consumers want. But ultimately, it's not that they are trying to harm our health. They just don't care. That's not a priority for them. Unless consumers demand that that's what they want, right? So, and I think that's happening right now, which I think is really exciting. That's the whole goal of Trash Panda, is to bring that transparency and that power to the consumer to say, hey, what is this ingredient in my food? I don't think I want that in my food anymore. I'm going to turn over the package and I'm going to read the ingredients and I'm going to understand what that means for my health, and I'm going to demand better. And we're seeing that with things like food dyes right now. The consumer is saying, hey, I'm realizing that there's a lot of harmful health impacts of consuming food dyes, especially for children. And I don't want that in my food. So they're demanding that big food companies remove those ingredients, and they're responding. They have to respond because otherwise the consumer's not going to buy that product anymore. So I think, yes, there's a lot of that at play, but ultimately as consumers, we do have the power to vote with our dollars and speak out about what we want. And they ultimately will have to respond to that, which is exciting.
Let's hit on some of these words we were already saying, front of package, back of package, health claims like, again, air quote here, natural, organic, or made with whole grains, or fat-free, sugar-free. What do these actually mean? More importantly, by saying this, what are they not saying? If you have one thing, does it mean you don't have another? Or if you have one thing, are you sacrificing something else? What are these claims? What weight do they hold, actually?
None. I would ignore
None.
Every claim pretty much entirely.
So if I see something that says like all natural, organic, made from all natural sweeteners, or just really everything is a farce, or everything is just clever branding, marketing.
Yeah, it just doesn't really mean anything. All natural doesn't mean anything. And organic does. I would say that is important. But the reason I say none of them mean anything is because the truth lies in the list of ingredients on the package, and the information that you need is there. Not the nutrition facts, not the calories, not the fat, not the macros part of it, but looking at the list of the ingredients in the package, that's where you'll find the information about what's really in that food.
What is
and
it about
if it's
the list of
organic,
ingredients?
it will say so there too. So you can go by that. It is what makes up the product. So you can say all natural, but that doesn't really mean anything. What matters is what are the ingredients in that food. So are there whole foods listed in the ingredient list, foods that you can go buy elsewhere at the grocery store that you recognize and you understand? Or are there ingredients in the ingredient list that are chemically made in a lab that you can't actually buy anywhere else at the store, that you don't recognize? They're not real food at that point. So in my opinion, that is what matters the most, eating real food, even if a food comes in a package. And I think that's where things get a little bit confusing for consumers as well, because then you hear the advice like, oh, just shop the perimeter of the grocery store. Don't buy anything in a package, and like just eat whole foods, which to some degree is good advice. Like we should mostly be eating whole, fresh foods that were alive at some point, right? Fruits, vegetables, meat.
Yeah, not a bad recommendation by any
Not a
means,
bad
yeah.
recommendation by any means. And I certainly focus on eating whole foods in my own diet. But again, like with the lifestyle that we live today, convenience is important, and those packaged options are important. And just because something is packaged doesn't mean it's ultra processed. The ultra processed foods are what we want to avoid. And that's what the ingredients will tell you is based on those ingredients. Is this food ultra processed or not? Is it made of real food?
I think all natural is a really popular one. How then do these companies get away with just slapping the phrase all natural on a food and kind of knowing more or less what that is implying to the consumer? What are there rules for someone to go, this is all natural? Do they have to meet certain criteria? Do they have to not have an ingredient? They have to have certain ingredients? Is it a manufacturing process? Or is it just a loophole that all of these food companies found out that they could just say and it has no repercussion?
So with all natural specifically, I'm pretty sure that there didn't really used to be any rules about it. And so it got widespread use kind of willy-nilly, and anybody could slap it on their package. I think since then they've dialed it back to say that if you are going to say all natural on your label, you need to back it up by, certain things. So I think that is becoming more regulated, and things are regulated by the FDA. So the Federal, Drug Association is regulating what claims can go on a package. It's not just a total free for all. There are workarounds to that. The way you name your product, other words that you put on the package, like they're not specific certifications and things like that. So it's a little bit of a mix. Like to some degree, people can put what they want on the package. To some degree, it's regulated. But I think from a consumer's point of view, you just don't want to go buy those labels on the front. It's not going to get you the information that you need. And the good news is that products are required to list all of the ingredients in their food. So that's where I say go to the ingredients list, because that is, if something's in there, it has to be listed, right? That'll tell you the truth. So really understanding what those ingredients are, what the impacts are on your health, are critical to making the right decisions when you're purchasing those packaged products at the store.
So am I hearing you correctly in that if I'm in the grocery store and I'm looking at a product, meat, vegetables, package, whatever, and on the front I see, oh, organic, oh, all natural, oh, whatever, something that is, in my opinion, I'm interpreting as good, healthy. I should not consider that information as much as if I flip it over and look at the back of the label and look at that information. Just should I throw everything out that I see on the front and only go off of the back in terms of ingredients?
For the most part, yeah. Because for example, with meat, you see like grass-fed, whatever the claims are on the front. That is slightly different than like a more packaged product. That's a whole food product. So, but in that example, in the ingredient list, it should say 100% grass-fed beef in the ingredients too. So you'll still get that information if that's what you're looking for, but it lives in the ingredients list.
Okay.
And the other stuff on the front. I mean, you can look at it and you can consider it, but you shouldn't do that in lieu of looking at the ingredients. Like the ingredients are the thing at the end of the day that matter the most. So if you're going to look at one thing, I say look at the ingredients.
And kind of going back to my old clinic days, I remember that the order of ingredients, there's something to that, and also the amount of ingredients. Can you walk us through, besides just looking at the ingredients, why does it matter what's first, what's last, and whether something has a few or a lot?
Yeah. So the ingredients that are listed first it's by amount of ingredient in that product. So the first ingredient that's listed is the largest makeup of that product. So if the first ingredient is sugar, that product is mostly made up of sugar. That's why it's listed first, and then it kind of decreases from there. So when you're looking at an ingredient list, you want to pay attention to that to some degree. Like if you're buying a granola bar, do you want the first ingredient to be sugar? Maybe not. If you're buying ice cream, okay, we get it. It's ice cream, right? So it's going to be high in sugar. But then, like you said, the list, like how long the ingredient list is a good indication too of, is that food ultra processed? Because the longer the ingredients are, the more likely that it is an ultra processed food product that you would want to avoid. That's not totally, fail safe. It's a good gauge. But there are some products that have a lot of ingredients that are all good ingredients. So you just got to be aware of that too. But as a rule of thumb, the longer the ingredient list, the more sketchy that product is going to be. And like I said, with ingredients that you look at and you're like, I don't know what that is. I don't think I can buy dextrose at the grocery store, or maltodextrin or carrageenan. Like, I don't know what aisle I would go to find that thing. That's another red flag that you would want to say, okay, that's probably not a whole food ingredient that I should be consuming.
I'm doing a quick little fact check here. I remember one of the things that surprised me the most when it comes to ingredients was bread. I think that's something most people buy. And bread really only needs, I think, 5 ingredients. It's water, yeast, flour, salt, something else. But when we look at most other breads out there, I think like the ingredient list will shock you. I was trying to I don't know why, no shade here to Nature's Own, but they're just the first bread brand that popped into mind.
Great example.
Great branding too. I mean, it's got like this, great natural like oat image, and like
I grew up eating it. The honey wheat. That's what I ate every day as a kid.
Perfectly crafted, naturally, all these other things. You look back on the ingredients list, and it's like an entire paragraph. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I stopped counting after 15 ingredients.
Because bread isn't meant to last more than like a day or two. And if you want bread to sit on a grocery store shelf for a week or more, and the consumer wants that too. They're like, I don't want my bread to go moldy after a day. Like, I need it to last longer. I need it to be soft. I need it to be all these things. They start adding ingredients into that bread to achieve that result. And again, that's where I don't think it's necessarily nefarious. Like, I don't think they're trying to harm our health, but they just put those ingredients into the food and they're like, oh, it's to do this thing. It's fine. It's safe in small amounts. And then we realize years later, after it's been in the food system for a while, that like, oh, wait, that is having long-term health effects on people. That's really impacting, people's health, and it's a problem. And so, let's now go and try to remove them. But at that point, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the damage is done. So that's where you have to be careful. Those ingredients don't belong in our food, and it's up to us to really kind of go after that and know about it.
What are some red flags you immediately look for when you are scanning a food label?
Yeah. I mean, the first one I mentioned is, are there any ingredients that I can't find elsewhere at the grocery store? Are there ingredients that I can't pronounce that sounds like they're a chemical, not a whole food ingredient? I think that's kind of the easiest step for people when they're first starting out. But I obviously know way too much at this point. So there's a lot of things that I look for personally. I think about ingredients like food dyes, which are getting phased out, thankfully, finally, in the last couple of months by big food companies based on that, consumer demand that I was talking about. They have no purpose. They have no purpose other than selling that product. So, and the person that they're trying to sell to is usually a child. They're trying to sell candy. They're trying to sell cereal that's colorful and branded and has a cartoon character on the front. And there's no other benefit to having a dye, an artificial dye in your food other than that marketing power that brings. And so there's absolutely no reason to be consuming it. Right. That's where, in my mind, it's like, why would we? What's the point? What are we getting out of this other than just kind of the potential risk of it that comes on the other side? So anything like that where there's no benefit, there's no real purpose other than marketing, or, things like artificial flavors or even natural flavors can be made up of hundreds of different chemicals that they don't actually have to list individually. They can make foods really addictive. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with ultra processed food. If you think about soda and chips and, these freezer meals that a lot of people eat, even I mentioned the healthy looking yogurt that has artificial flavor in it to make it taste like strawberry, but it's a really heightened flavor of strawberry. Our taste buds really react to that, and we really want that, and then it transforms them. So then a regular strawberry doesn't taste good anymore because I'm so used to this super heightened strawberry flavor.
Lesser than strawberry.
Yeah,
the strawberry is not strawberry enough. When actually, no, that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And once you remove those ultra processed foods and you stop eating those artificial dyes, those artificial flavors, you start in all the added sugar. That's a whole other thing. But then you start, your taste buds start to adjust back. You start to realize how good a strawberry can taste because you can really taste it. And your taste buds haven't been affected by all these other things. So, but that's an important one because it creates a slippery slope, right? Once you start to build this addiction to ultra processed foods and regular foods don't taste good, then you just want more and more of the ultra processed stuff. And the more ultra processed foods you eat, the more negative impact it's going to have on your health. So, that's a big one that I look out for too. I think even a lot of healthy looking foods have natural flavors, and it's not that I don't entirely avoid natural flavors 100% of the time, but I'm aware of it, right? If something has natural flavors in it, I want to be aware that this is going to affect my taste of other foods, and I don't want to be over consuming that ingredient too much, every single day or in, something that I have all the time.
Really interesting. I want to kind of get to the natural versus unnatural flavors and colors and stuff in just a little bit. It's really interesting you're bringing that up already. I want to shift into talking about the most dangerous chemicals in our food supply a little bit. Let's really get specific. I want to talk key offenders, and let's really educate my audience, please, and me on the impact of these chemicals. What would you say are the top 5 most dangerous chemicals or additives in our food system today?
Yeah, let's
say top 3.
I would
top
say,
3 to 5.
by category, I would say I mentioned food dyes. I think that's huge. They're getting phased out, but they've been in our food system for a long time, and they're still there now. So you still need to check for food dyes. Just because they're getting phased out doesn't mean that they are gone now. They will be gone.
They have
eventually.
A timeline. I think it's 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So now you need to check. And that's really nefarious because it's, like I said, affecting kids the most. The foods with dyes are mostly marketed toward kids, and they affect kids the most. These little bodies can't take, doses of things that an adult can take. And I noticed it with my kids. We just had Halloween. My kids went trick-or-treating. I'm not saying you're not allowed to go trick-or-treating. You're not to get any candy. That I'm trying to strike that balance as a parent of we live in this world. I don't want you to feel completely ostracized from it. I want you to participate and, have some of that in your life. I'm not going to ever buy it for you, but if you come across it, I also don't want you to feel totally restricted.
Once a year on Halloween.
Exactly.
We're flexible.
Exactly. But then they eat like the Skittles that they got trick-or-treating, and I immediately notice a change in their behavior because it affects their brain and it can cause neurobehavioral problems in children, especially children with ADHD, which is becoming more and more of an issue as well for a lot of other reasons. But they do affect their brains. And so I think a lot of people think, oh, Halloween candy, it's not healthy for you, of course, right? You don't want your kid eating too much sugar. You don't want them to eat like empty calories. But I don't think they think about like the fact that the ingredients in these candies are affecting children's brain and their brain development and their behavior.
That's a totally different conversation, right? We're talking about, nutritional density, quality calories versus just like total calories. We're talking, one can even say you're kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but I would beg to differ. I think it also could be very goal dependent, but especially when we're talking children, we have to be even more hyper conscientious of these things, because to your point, I think it's such a really important point. These are tiny people that are developing for years and years and years and years and years and years. And how many of us, even as adults, go through an adjustment period when we tweak something in our diet, we tweak something in our daily habits, our sleep, or add or subtract alcohol, or go from whole foods to processed foods, or vice versa, or anything. We can tell a difference, because we're mature enough. Our brains have actually developed, and we're at a point to be able to navigate those metabolic changes. A child doesn't. They can't. And then you wonder why, we have rampant ADHD and ADD and all these potential neurological disorders associated to all these food additives and chemicals that we're talking about, when, oh, well, it's just here and there, or, oh, it's, just this or that, but it has a quicker, more detrimental impact, no?
Yeah. And they're in school lunches.
Yeah.
They're starting to try to remove them from school lunches. But like, if you're a family that relies on school lunch and your kid is eating food dyes in their school lunch every day, absolutely, it's affecting their behavior at school, their ability to pay attention when they're trying to learn, their energy. It matters. And especially when you're talking about on a daily basis, them consuming something like that, it's important. So I think that's something that in the health space, we're realizing more now, but a lot of people still miss is like, it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's not just about eating too much added sugar or too many calories. It's about like, what are these chemical ingredients actually doing to our bodies and our brains?
So I kind of derailed us there a little bit. So let's go back to these other, top 3 to 5, most dangerous chemicals or additives in our food supply. So we're talking food dyes. One of them. What else?
I think so. There's like kind of two sides to one coin. One is added sugar, but not just added sugar in the form of like regular cane sugar or like organic cane sugar. High fructose corn syrup is one of the biggest problems in our food supply today because it spikes our blood sugar more than regular sugar. And it's in so many things. And it's not just in things that you would think that would be sweet. It's in things like ketchup. It's in things like salad dressing. It's
children's vitamins, adult vitamins.
Mind-blowing.
It's unreal. And it's so difficult for people that are trying to just like start a healthy habit or do the right thing here. Like, oh, I'm taking a vitamin. Great.
Exactly.
But flip it over. Look at the nutrition facts. The first ingredient on a vitamin is sugar, high fructose corn syrup. There's a better choice here.
Totally. Yeah. And that's where I think knowing that difference between, high fructose corn syrup, that's a highly processed, ultra processed ingredient versus like, yes, you should limit your consumption of sugar, and people in America consume way too much sugar on a daily basis, like period. It's a huge issue, but the form of sugar also matters. And sugar can actually show up as like over 60 different names on an ingredient label. So, and that's where we get at, back to, are they trying to confuse consumers? Probably, right? Because if you just put sugar, people know what that is. But if you put fructose, dextrose, maltodextrin, all of these different forms of sugar on the label that are harder to recognize, then the consumer doesn't realize, oh, there's actually 7 different forms of added sugar in this product, not just one. And that matters.
I just did a quick lookup of sugar. I'm curious how much sugar the average American consumes on a daily basis. Quick stat is about 22 to 34 teaspoons of sugar a day. That's the average American daily consumption, which is about 500 calories on the high end.
Yeah. And I think the recommendation is for women, it's like 25 grams of sugar or less a day. And then for men, it's maybe like 30 or something.
And what's a visual on that? I mean, holding up my cup here, like 34 teaspoons of sugar. That's like a quarter of my coffee mug here, if not half, just sugar.
Yeah.
We wouldn't just sit down and consume that. I mean, at once that would be kind of crazy, but just think about that.
Oh, but people do.
Look for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. The Starbucks drinks have more than that amount of sugar in a single drink. And people drink those every single day. So by one drink, you're not even consuming food at that point. You're over consuming sugar right off the bat, first start to your day, not to mention like all the other things that sugar may show up in the food throughout the rest of the day. So that's a huge part of the problem why people are over consuming sugar is I think they don't realize how much is in the things that they're consuming and things like coffee that, really shouldn't have much sugar in them at all.
In my opinion, the majority of the menu on Starbucks are coffee flavored sugar drinks.
Yeah, it's like a milkshake.
Do you want a grande or a venti, diabetes to go, basically.
100%, 100%. And that's like other countries come here and they're like, what is going on here? This isn't coffee.
No.
And it's just we've Americanized it. It's unfortunate.
Well, not up in here. I'm only ever drinking strong coffee. Use code Chase, save 15%. It's the best. So we've got food dyes, sugar. Give us one of the most dangerous food chemicals or additives that we should be mindful of.
So I think on the flip side of the sugar conversation is artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols. So a lot of people realize the sugar part and they're like, okay, got to reduce my consumption of sugar. But they still want to eat sweet things. So then they go to the sugar-free options of those sweet things, right? And I think this is like as a kid growing up in the 90s, this was huge. It was also like the whole low fat trend, but like sugar-free, fat-free. I remember eating like Snackwell's cookies that were like low fat, sugar-free. But those sugar alcohols and those artificial sweeteners actually can be even worse for you when consumed in large amounts than a little bit of sugar, because they really disrupt your gut. And as you know, I'm sure like your gut health is key to your health in a lot of other ways. So if you're regularly consuming a lot of these artificial sweeteners and they're disrupting your gut, they can cause uncomfortable side effects, but it can also really put you on a spiral toward negative health outcomes in the long run because you're destroying the thing that kind of keeps us alive and well in our gut microbiome. And I think that's where a lot of people just don't get it. They just don't understand that like, oh, I'm avoiding sugar, so I'm eating this sugar-free thing. I mean, you think about people drinking like Diet Coke that is 0 calories. So they're like, well, I'm not consuming all the sugar and all the calories that come with soda, which again is a big problem. You should be avoiding those sodas. But Diet Coke has aspartame in it, which has been linked to a lot of other health issues, including cancer. So I wouldn't be drinking that as a better substitute or alternate to Coke. And that's where kind of the market offers those options because that's what people are looking for, low sugar, sugar-free. Yeah. But the alternative is not better and in some cases can be worse because they're replacing that with a chemical additive to make something taste sweet even though it didn't come from an ingredient that's sweet.
Right, yeah. And I want to kind of shine a light on the differences between what's going on here in America and abroad, particularly the U.S. versus Europe. Which of these we've been talking about, these dangerous chemicals or additives in your experience are still allowed in the US but not abroad? And more importantly, why are we allowing this stuff in, air quote here, the greatest country on earth when we know that they're detrimental? In fact, so many other countries, particularly in the EU, are banning them because of the hard scientific evidence.
Yeah, I mean, food dyes is another great example here. They haven't been in European products for a long time. If they put them in, I think they have to put a warning on the front of the package that says like may affect children, neurobehavioral problems in children.
And not just products. I mean, it's even if you take the exact same product. So now we're not just talking about categories here. In some instances, yes, but like Kellogg's, Post, like some of these global brands, they will put out the same cereal in America in the same cereal in France, and the ingredients are radically different.
Which is so frustrating as an American consumer because they're already making the product.
Right. Like you're already doing it.
They're already making the product and they're selling it in a different market. It's not even like they have to change their whole formula and figure this whole thing out. Like, no, just start selling that product here. We as Americans deserve those better quality products too. And so that's where it just comes down to profits. It's cheaper to sell the products with the artificial dyes than the natural dyes. So any opportunity they have to make that higher margin, they're going to do that until the consumer demands that they want something different. But yeah, they're already selling those products and, it's absurd that we are getting something different here. But the difference, I think, is because the way that they're regulated in the EU. I would say, generally speaking, the EU is, I would say that they're requiring ingredients be proven safe before they put them into food. Whereas in the US, we kind of put them in and then will, to some degree they're, tested. But a lot of times ingredients can be put into foods and then, it comes first and then they get removed when they've been proven that they aren't good for us. So rather than really verifying and, being super careful before we put it into the food, we'll test it a certain amount, we'll put it in the food, and then if it's harmful, we'll take it out. But I'd rather go the other direction, right?
Yeah.
And I think as a consumer, it's like we go round and round about these like specific ingredients or chemical additives or whatever it is, but it comes down to like a really basic notion that like we did not evolve to eat these foods that are chemically processed and include tons of additives and preservatives and emulsifiers and things in them. We're supposed to eat off the land, like I loved hearing some of your backstory about how when you grew up, you were eating like mostly foods from your garden and things like that.
Yeah. We would go out, literally I would walk out the door and go pick a tomato off the vine and eat it, pick an apple, fruit, corn, or we would just go harvest it and then get in the kitchen with my dad and my grandma and cook dinner.
That's amazing.
And like swap goods with the farm across the mountain kind of thing.
Yeah, we've gotten so far from that. Most people have no idea where their food came from, what's in it, what the processing was required to get it onto the shelf that they buy at the store. We've become so detached from like real food and the source of it. And I think that is a big part of the problem, that matters.
In that vein, can you kind of now dive into some of the science behind how these chemicals impact things, chemicals that are in these processed food or even, additives to these quote natural foods that not everyone's growing a tomato, but we could see some things in the grocery store, in Costco, whatever. How are these chemicals impacting things such as metabolism, hormones, or even chronic inflammation, some common things a lot of people are suffering from these days?
Yeah. So I boil it down and like I kind of group all of these ingredients and these additives into ultra processed food. And the definition of ultra processed food is basically like any food that has these chemical additives or a lot of ingredients, like artificial ingredients in them. That is the food dyes, the artificial flavors, the artificial sweeteners, the sugar alcohols, the preservatives like BHA, BHT, titanium dioxide. So all of those ingredients are what kind of creates the ultra processed food. And if you look at the studies around ultra processed food, the correlation between the more consumption of ultra processed food, the more illness, the more chronic disease. I think there's actually like a 21% increase in all-cause mortality for people who consume more ultra-processed foods. And at this point, the average American diet, I think, consumes over 50% ultra-processed foods. And for kids, it's even higher. It's like over 60%. So over half of our diet, or over 60% of kids' diet, is ultra-processed foods. And we know for a fact that these ultra-processed foods lead to, higher mortality rates, higher early death rates. They lead to cancer. They lead to heart disease. They lead to, type 2 diabetes.
Directly, we have not just correlation, but like causation. We're seeing this happen.
I mean, with diet and things like that, it can be hard to find that direct causation. But there are studies that show that the more consumption of ultra-processed food over time, the higher risk of like over 32 different health conditions down the line.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You hit on something interesting I want to go back and highlight. am I understanding correctly that we can start with a whole food, but just by putting these additives, preservatives, flavors, dyes, other chemicals on that whole food, it then becomes an ultra processed food. So an ultra processed food is not taking a bunch of food stuff, mixing it all. It's not like there's no natural Pop-Tart out in Mother Nature, right?
Correct.
But there are strawberries. So we take the strawberries, we turn it into a Pop-Tart kind of thing. So we can start with a strawberry, and a strawberry can become an ultra processed food.
Yeah.
We don't need to go just like a prepackaged option.
Totally. I don't think there's actually any strawberries in a Pop-Tart, to your point.
Interesting.
But
yeah, I wonder.
But yeah, it is the presence of those ingredients, whether they've been added to a whole food or it kind of like was chemically concocted from the start, to your point. Yes, the presence of those ingredients are impacting, you know, the health outcome if you're consuming them, no matter where they originated from.
Okay, so I just looked up. I got no shade here. Kellogg's brand Pop-Tarts, strawberry. I'm looking at the list of ingredients. About 60% down. So 60% of the way through, meaning it's like we're becoming less and less by weight of that ingredient in the product. It says dried strawberries.
Okay. So we got some strawberries in there.
But I'm curious how many dried strawberries are in that. It's probably maybe just enough to say there are made with real strawberries. Right.
And that's where I think the front of the package can be really misleading, because I'm sure on the front of the package, it's like strawberry.
Oh, yeah. And it's a giant strawberry halved and right on top of the Pop-Tart.
Yeah. So what they're selling you is the strawberry, but then in the ingredients, you see the truth, which is that there's like a teeny tiny little bit of strawberry in there. Man, most of what you're eating is something else.
Crapping on my childhood. God, I love Pop-Tarts so much.
Same.
I was always a brown sugar and cinnamon Pop-Tart guy.
Well, this was our generation. We were raised on these ultra processed foods because that was kind of like the dawn of that convenience. And we just didn't know, you know, our parents didn't know. So.
Well, now you do, everybody.
Now we do. And we're trying to do better.
So now let's shift into kind of a deeper dive of these artificial colors, flavors, and sweeteners. And particularly for parents, let's keep in mind here, you know, how can we be more educated at a level enough so that we can make a better choice for us? But as a new parent here, I only ever want to make a choice for my son that, you know, I'm thinking about here and now for him today, but also I can't not think about his future. And so I want him to be, you know, like, Dean, I want you to be a 40-year-old and having had all these life experiences as much as I can contribute to set you up for greater success. And success being vibrant, healthy life. Yeah. And so you were talking about it earlier, but now let's go to Red 40. Artificial dyes like Red 40 and Yellow 5 are still a lot of places, but we're now seeing policy in effect to remove them. I actually recently had Senator Patrick McMath from Louisiana on. He's really spearheading a lot what's going on with MAHA. No political affiliation here, but just, I love what they're up to, what he's up to in terms of getting this stuff removed from schools. And so what do people really need to know about them in terms of maybe where are they the most? As a parent, where can I just look? Where can I scan in my home, in my pantry, in the grocery store, and in my kids' lunches to go, I should look deeper here, try to make a change here, whether that's giving them lunch instead of what they're able to get, or maybe even interjecting and talking to the school and go, how can we change this particular area for my kid and our children? Yeah.
So with the dyes in particular, we find them, I mentioned cereal as a big culprit, but I also see it in things like Gatorade. And like my son is doing soccer. He's 6. I have 3 kids. So I'm like living and breathing this every single day. He goes to soccer, and then the team parent like brings a snack and a juice or a drink after soccer. And a lot of them are giving out Gatorade, probably because they think that's a healthy option. It has electrolytes. Again, I played sports growing up and in college, and I drank a lot of Gatorade, but Gatorade has artificial dyes in it. And so, you know, that's not something that you want to be giving your kid, especially on any kind of regular basis. They show up in those. They show up in other like juices and drinks and obviously, you know, sodas and things like that. But yeah, I think if you are going to try to avoid that for your kids, what you bring into your home matters most. Like I said, I still let my kids go trick-or-treating. I still let them like try some of the Gatorade that they get from soccer as much as it like kills me inside. But what they're eating and drinking on a daily basis in your home and at school does matter the most. So I would say, you know, if you're sending your kid off to school, definitely look closely at the school lunches that are being provided. I live in San Diego. We're super fortunate. The school lunches are, you know, offering local produce. They have grass-fed meats.
Oh, no way.
So
Wow.
like there are
Damn.
places where like this is changing and
Wow.
evolving and they're seeing the importance of it. I would say in most places that's not the case. So packing your kids' lunch yourself is going to be the better option. And I know it's hard. I know. I get up every morning and I try to get my kid to school and I pack their lunch and it is a lot of work. And just the time that it takes to put that effort in is hard. So I think you have to find what works for you and your family. But even if you're making your kid peanut butter and jelly, some people are like, oh, peanut butter and jelly, that's not healthy. It matters what you put, like what the peanut butter and jelly is made out of. There's a very big difference between making it with that Nature's Own bread and Smucker's jelly and peanut butter is another thing that has like a lot of added sugar. The classic like Jif peanut butter and things like that have sugar added to them. But if you make a peanut butter and jelly with real bread, you know, sourdough bread that's fresh with peanut butter that's just made out of organic peanuts and maybe a little bit of salt. I love this jam called Chia Smash that's just fruit. There's no added sugar. It's just fruit and chia seeds. I make a peanut butter and jelly out of that. I feel way better about giving that to my kid. That's real food. So kids are tough. They are picky. They only like to try and eat certain things. It's been a battle for me too, to like get my kids to eat a variety of different kinds of vegetables. We're still on that journey. But there are ways that you can, you know, find those real food options and work with what you have and, you know, give your kid the food that they deserve to learn and grow and, you know, become the best version of themselves, because it does matter. The food that they eat matters. And I almost think it's such a bummer that a lot of times the worst food is what kids end up eating. I think parents think like, oh, kids are resilient or they're not going to gain weight. They're like running around all day. So they can eat whatever they want and like they just won't eat a regular meal. So I just have to give them snacks 24/7 in order for them to like eat anything. You really have to hold that line as a parent.
And as a parent now, I have full confidence in saying this publicly. I believe that's lazy parenting. Parenting's hard.
It is.
It's hard. But when it gets down to that level, maybe here and there, sure, yeah, like you're driving, you got a screaming kid and they'll only eat like, you know, the packaged cracker. But if you can just plan a little bit better, if you can make these swaps, like, do you want to just give yourself and your child an easy out now and set them and you up for misery, potential chronic illness and disease, not that far down the road? It could just be a matter of months. It could be years, but you trace it all back. I mean, all of these things matter. What you give them, what you don't give them is making or breaking their childhood experience.
Yeah. And I think it's just, if you never give it to them, it's going to be so much easier than if you have like given into all of those options and then you try to go the other direction and dial them back. Like I said, like what they eat and their taste buds, like it really affects like what they're going to be willing to eat in the future. So if at home, again, they're going to be exposed to this stuff down the line at school, at birthday parties, at soccer games, like to some extent, you're not going to be able to control it entirely. But if you set the foundation of real food, getting them to try different things, you know, eating dinner together, eating whole foods at those meals together, packing their lunch, that's going to be their foundation. That's going to be like what they always come back to in the end. So I think it's so hard as a parent today. And there's so many strains on parents and their time and their ability to do it all. So I totally understand. And I never want to shame parents for the choices that they make. And I think a lot of it is just not being fully informed about like how much of an impact that really does have. I think if they knew, they wouldn't be making those choices.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think one of the most rampant, loosely thrown around, but also diagnosed healthcare concerns for children these days and for a long time has been ADHD. Do you feel that ADHD, the prevalent presence of it, is majority linked to these things like food dyes, chemicals, additives in the foods kids are eating? Or is there something else going on?
I'm certainly not an expert in that area, but I do know that what foods kids eat matters. And if we go back to that stat of the average American kids, over 60% of their diet is ultra processed food. Absolutely, that's having an impact on their ability to focus and behave. So I would not be at all surprised if that was a big factor. And just lifestyle factors in general, right? Like food is such a huge part. And I think if anyone's going to start their health journey, starting by removing ultra processed foods and paying attention to eating whole foods is such an impactful place to start. Like that can be life changing for people, even if they just do that. But there's a lot of factors, I think, like the stress that we're all dealing with, the access to screens and, kids like basically being entertained by TV and video games for a large portion of their like younger years. I think all of that is part of the picture too. So I don't think it's just the food, but I absolutely think that the food that we're eating today is impacting, our health right now. And especially for kids who are so sensitive to it, as well as in the long term.
Hindsight now being, 2020, and with all the higher level education that you have, but also personal life experience of testing things, adding foods, removing foods from your own personal diet. Looking back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what would you go back and change in your childhood from a nutritional standpoint? Look, let's be honest, as a kid, having like a sugary treat or snack and stuff, just it's great. Kids love it. But knowing what you know now, what would you go back and change that you think was not unique to your childhood? Like these common childhood snacks and foods and just experiences, really, because as kids, we like to experience things. We're always in play, we want to play with our food. What would you change, knowing what you know now?
I think I actually had a pretty fortunate childhood in that regard. We talked about, I definitely consumed some of those ultra processed foods, but I would say my parents were actually a bit ahead of the game in that space. They never let us buy like the sugary cereals. I always remember we would go on this one vacation every year and we would buy like the mini pack of all of the different cereals, like the Frosted
Fruit Loops
Flakes
and Pops and Apple Jacks. Yeah.
And my sister and I would sit there and we would like each get to choose one at a time until we got like split up the pack between the two of us. But that was like a very special occasion for us. Whereas I think a lot of kids were eating those foods every single day. That wasn't the case. And my parents were very focused on cooking food, eating healthy food. So they were really doing a great job. And there isn't a lot that I would change because I learned how to cook. I learned the importance of eating healthy foods. Of course, if I were to go back, we wouldn't be doing any of that. Even on like the special occasions, I'm not going to be feeding my kid Fruit Loops like ever. Or, some of the other sweets that we had, it was just, and again, a lot of it was homemade, but, the packaged food is what I would remove entirely because there's no reason for it. And your kid is going to get some of that in their life anyway. Yeah. So like as much as you at home can keep it real and focus on those whole foods, cooking whole foods, I would change that if I could go back, but I think relative to probably a lot of people and my parents were doing great. I guess the other thing that comes to mind is like, we talked about briefly the low fat era. And, I specifically remember having, I can't believe it's not butter in our refrigerator.
I can't believe I'm eating this crap. That's what we really should have called it.
And it's wild. Do you think back?
Hydrogenized oil.
Yeah. We're like, I can't believe it's not butter, but what is it? Right? Like, how is that better
they
than
did such a good job of the marketing, getting us to believe it's just not butter and always relating it to butter. But we never stopped to ask, well, then what is it?
And people have been eating butter for many generations. Like, why are we all of a sudden demonizing butter? But it was just like
it was attacked under the whole no fat, low fat.
Yeah. And it was like it would come in like a spray bottle.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's easy. It's so easy. Yeah. Now, actually, I mean, I'm team butter all the day. I love a good, salted, grass-fed butter. And actually, on one of my pediatrician visits with my son, and as we began to introduce foods, they're like, guacamole, butter, just give them a stick of butter. And so it's just wild how full circle. Yeah, she's great. And so, and it's like, they love it. It's easy. It's just good quality fat, but just, I mean, we live in a different time now.
Yeah, that was actually a huge turning point for me in terms of wanting to change my diet and wanting to create Trash Panda was I was it was after college. I was living in San Diego. I had made a friend who was in San Diego with me, and we were cooking together, and she like pulled vegetable oil out of my cabinet, like canola oil. And she's like, "Are you for real with this? Like, you're still using this?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? It says heart healthy right there on the front. It's a healthy option. Like, I've had this since my childhood. This is what we always cook with. This is what we always bake with instead of butter. It was kind of the replacement." And she was like, "You need to throw this out immediately. I can't believe that you like have this." And that's where I was like, I know nothing, apparently.
Which is crazy when you think about it. I mean, just you break down vegetable oil made from vegetables.
Great marketing.
You would assume, oh, I'm just pouring liquid vegetables into my food. It's got to be better, right?
But like what vegetable, right? I don't
And
think a
how's
lot
it
of
made?
people, right? Exactly. It's, from the rapeseed plant and it's chemically extracted via hexane. It's like not a food that we're supposed to be eating. It's like a chemical concoction that was created to make a cheap option to address the low fat trend,
Yeah.
So that was a huge light bulb moment for me. Something I would definitely go back and change from my childhood. It's like, just remove the whole low fat trend entirely.
Yeah.
Eat regular butter. I can't believe it's not butter, and vegetable oil, and just like
Routine butter over here all day. So I want to kind of now get into how you've taken all this information, education, and experience and bundled it into something we can literally just put in our hands. I remember probably like 2008, 2009 is when I really got serious about learning about what I'm eating, more so from a total calories and macronutrient split. This was kind of when like the bro science days were getting rolling, and it was all about your macros or just, but at service level too, like you were learning more about the food you were eating. So I use a few different apps. The first one, the biggest one was MyFitnessPal. And that did wonders for me to just, I was like, oh my God, like this food has how many calories? Or, oh, I thought I was getting, it says high protein, but high protein compared to what? I'm getting 10 grams of protein when I'm thinking I'm getting maybe double that. So technology in these apps really introduced just this heightened level of awareness for me and millions of other people by putting information and really choice and voting with our dollars at our fingertips. And so I used for years MyFitnessPal. This year, a little bit of last year, I began to use something for my supplements called Supco that just, helped me kind of scan the supplements I was taking, what's in them, third-party lab testing, purification, potency, how much of which ingredient is actually in it. So that became, I went from a more empowered and educated, just general foodie eater to my supplements. So now I'm really excited to learn more about Trash Panda, especially as a new parent, to go, all right, from like a nutritional standpoint, quality standpoint, food additives, chemicals, what's going on? Help me to kind of really like pull back these veils that Trader Joe's isn't going to put out, Sprouts isn't going to, it's not going to be like, selection by quality here because they're all fighting for and buying for shelf space. What is Trash Panda? What's it all about? How is it going to help us kind of connect all these dots we've been talking about?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your path and your journey using MyFitnessPal and counting calories and things like that.
I had like 8-10 years of MyFitnessPal data.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that can be really helpful for people, but it's not the full picture. Like you can have something that's low calorie, you can be eating low calorie, but you're not eating real food. So therefore you're still getting impacted by these longer term health impacts. And I think there's a misconception for a lot of people that like thin equals healthy, which is not always the case. And with the whole high protein craze, I mean, it's similar to like the vegan craze, right? Like people are concocting these food-like products to make them high protein, but just because it's high protein doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because it's vegan, like the Beyond Burger and things like that they've like created a burger out because people wanted to be vegan, but they still wanted to eat a burger. Like this soy protein isolate concoction is not real food. So I think,
and it's extremely processed. Correct?
Exactly. So that's where like counting calories will help you in some ways. And like, I think just paying attention to what you're eating is like the biggest thing, right? Like looking at it, thinking about it, like, being locked in. But that's where I think a lot of people just miss the food quality piece of it and the ingredients that matter for, long-term health and for weight loss too. Like if that's somebody's goal, if you're eating a bunch of, low calorie or, light and fit yogurts or all these things that are like, weight loss shakes and stuff like that people love, like the, what's the protein shake, that like Fairlife protein shake. I would never drink that. It's like a 20 grams of protein, like drink that's ready to drink. And like the fitness bros love it, right? Like everybody's drinking this protein drink to hit their macros. But if you actually look at the ingredients in that product, it's terrible. I would never drink that. So it's missing part of that picture. And that's where Trash Panda came in, because I realized that I thought I was always eating healthy, but really I was just counting calories. And those two things are not the same. It's really about the ingredients in your food, the quality of your food, eating real food. So I wanted to create an app that would allow the consumer to achieve that, to understand what the ingredients are in their food and to make those healthier choices. And if you're making those choices, I think, again, if your goal is weight loss, that is going to be a byproduct of eating more real food, because the more ultra processed foods you eat, the more calories you eat. Like they are addictive. You just want to like keep consuming them. So even if two people are on like a weight loss diet and one person is eating more ultra processed foods, they're not going to lose as much weight. And it can be hard to count calories for real food. So like if you're counting calories, a lot of times it's like you're eating packaged foods that have the calories listed that make it easy to count those calories, right? So kind of all of that to say, I wanted to create an app that people could use to get to the bottom of what's really healthy. And that's reading the ingredients.
So how
and
does
there
it work?
are like thousands of chemicals in our food today. So it can be impossible as a consumer to remember all of them and like keep track of them and, know what to look for when you're reading a label. It sounds as easy as like, oh, just read the ingredients, like see if there's real food in there. It's not that simple.
So is that how the app works? Is it really it's doing a high level scan of all the ingredients and kind of just summarizing it for you? Or is it kind of going good, bad, ugly kind of thing? How does it actually work?
Yeah. So you scan any food barcode and it'll pull up the product for you. And if the barcode, if there isn't a barcode, you're like looking at the ingredients on a McDonald's, Big Mac or something, you can take a picture of the ingredients and it'll give you the same insight right away. So scan the barcode, take a picture of the ingredients, and we flag ingredients as either potentially harmful, questionable. We have a whole section or category for added sugar as well. And then there's a couple other options to like customize it for you. So if you need to avoid gluten or dairy or soy or eggs, you can do that as well. But the main goal of the app is to allow the consumer to quickly scan the product and see, are there ingredients in here that are going to harm my health and that I would want to avoid? We intentionally do not do anything with calories. It's solely focused on the ingredients quality because that just doesn't really, again, it doesn't tell the whole story. Like you can be eating something that's high calorie or like higher density in calories, but it's still made of quality food, and everybody's needs in that department are kind of different. So to rate a food bad because it's high in calories or high in sodium, there's other apps that do that. I feel it can be really misleading to people. There's apps that will like rate things like Primal Kitchen salad dressing as bad because it's like high in fat. And it's like, well, that's the point. And relative to other salad dressings, the ingredients in that are totally clean. And I would buy that every day over something that's lower calorie or lower fat. So it helps consumers understand, okay, what ingredients are in this. You can tap on any ingredient that we flag to learn about it, to see the links to all of the studies that we reference, to back all of that information if you're someone who wants to deep dive. And it just helps educate the consumer and more clearly understand, what choices they're making at the grocery store that are going to impact their health in the long term.
Amazing. I'm curious, has it been out long enough for you guys to see what we're flagging as potentially harmful year one is escalating to absolutely very dangerous for the majority of people's health, a couple of years later, or the opposite? Because I feel like in the nutritional space, one study comes out now and then in 10 years, it's like the total opposite, or like, oh, well, sort of, kind of, not really. Are you guys updating it? Are you seeing, is anything come to mind where it's like, it was one thing at one point, but now it's completely something else?
Yeah, we are continuously updating it, adding studies. We've added new ingredients that have come out into the market. I don't think there's a case where we've necessarily changed the rating on a specific ingredient. There probably is. I'm just not remembering. We've been out since 2021, so the app has been live for a while. We were definitely, one of the first to start doing this. I think there's more apps coming onto the market now, kind of capitalizing on that trend. But yes, we have absolutely been updating our database of ingredients over time. An example of like an ingredient that is recently kind of gaining more traction is EPG. I don't know if you're familiar with like the David bar.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of controversy around David Barr.
Yeah.
Particularly because of who's behind it. I don't know if he's just an investor or actually was part in the formulation process, but Huberman, Dr. Lane, Lane Norton, and I think even like, because it's from the guy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the guy who created RX Bar, right?
Yes, I think that's true.
I think so. Walk us through why David Barr? What's going on there?
Well, the EPG in it is the ingredient that we would flag in the app because for one reason, it just hasn't been out that long and there isn't a lot of information on it, but there are some concerning, studies around it.
So what is it? What's EPG?
It's a fat replacement. So it's why they're able to create such a high protein bar that's so low calorie. And it's a chemical ingredient. It's not a natural whole food ingredient. So that's kind of what we always dial back to. There's not always going to be studies that, a lot of times there is, and we pull as much information as we can and what's available. But the thing we always come back to is this a whole food ingredient or was this created, chemically in a lab as a replacement for something else in a lot of cases? So all of our flagging in the app kind of boils down to that at a really basic level. Like, is it a whole food or is it a chemical ultra-processed additive? And so we'll always flag those chemical ultra-processed additives. And the more we learn, we'll continue to evolve and add to that. But we want to focus on people eating real food. And the distinction between, for example, in the app, we call something potentially harmful or questionable. Potentially harmful is like, there's a lot of good information that this is harmful to your health, and there's studies that link back to it.
From like a blanket statement, not just like it's potentially harmful for diabetics, pre-diabetics, people with cardiovascular disease.
For
it's
everybody.
Just like general bad things leading to chronic illness and disease.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then questionable is like, well, it's kind of new. We don't necessarily know. It hasn't been in the food system that long. I would be aware of how much you're eating of that thing, but maybe it's not like super harmful, but you still want to be aware of it. It's an additive. It's not a whole food ingredient. It's not something that's just like A-okay.
So I get the app. I'm using it. I'm kind of like scanning labels or scanning nutrition facts, and it's guiding me to these categories of foods, particularly ingredients, so that I either choose to consume it or not consume it. There's no other like logging purposes, or I'm not like, losing weight, gaining weight. It's just like a pure informational standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's to be informed about the foods that you're buying and empowered to make those healthier decisions. And we specifically don't give foods like there's apps that give foods like a yes or a no, thumbs up, thumbs down. It's approved. It's not approved. It's like 100 out of 100 or it's 20 out of 100, because I think there's a lot to the consumer being empowered for themselves and making their own choice. And it's not black and white. It's not like you should never eat anything with natural flavors ever. It's like, here's what natural flavors are. Here's what the health impacts of consuming too many natural flavors is. And then you make a decision about, how much of that thing you want to consume. If you're I feel okay about that, I'll keep buying it, then that's your choice. But ultimately the goal is to bring that awareness to, these are all the ingredients that are in our food. These are the health impacts that those ingredients have. You should be limiting how much of those chemical additives you choose to consume. But that's ultimately your choice and your path.
Have you seen any backlash from brands, manufacturers going, you're slandering our product or you're making this false claim about an ingredient in our food that actually hasn't been proven to say what you're saying it does, or, are they kind of splitting hairs with you on, a study linked or something? Has there been any backlash at all?
No.
Oh, good.
Not directly. Not directly. It's interesting because I do have some friends that like work in the CPG space, but they are paying attention. They are noticing that consumers are using apps like Trash Panda. And I think ultimately realizing that they're going to have to respond to it. It's the consumer demand. Like the app is the app, but it's representing the demand that a consumer has about wanting to know what's in their food, wanting to avoid these processed additives. So whether it's coming from us or, some other channel.
Yeah, at this day and age, it's just a matter of time before if a consumer chooses to become educated about what they're putting into their body through diet, supplements, one app, the internet, ChatGPT, it's really just a matter of time before they figure out a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, this has been fantastic. As we kind of wrap up here, I just want to acknowledge what you've done in the nutrition space for you and your family, but also kind of what I love about bringing people on like yourself is, you realized there was a problem or there was something that you wanted better for your life and those around you. And then you not only just like did something about it, but you created something that's going to help others do the same. And blanket statement, that's what living a life ever forward is all about, is realizing where I have the power and the choice to advance my life, to move forward in one avenue, one facet of my wellness, but collectively to live a life ever forward. So what does that mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
I think it's always learning. You said, always trying to become a better version of yourself. That is what gets me out of bed every day, is that, I've had this whole career in software development. I've worked on a lot of different kinds of products. But working on Trash Panda is my purpose. It's my mission. It's what it makes me feel alive, this ability to work on something that I feel like is helping the world and like helping move us in the right direction, helping move us forward. We've taken steps back in our food system and our health is being directly impacted by that. I feel really passionate about that, and that it doesn't have to be that hard, right? It can be easy. The point of Trash Panda is to make that simple, just making the process of choosing healthier options simple and easy for people. I think just constantly learning, constantly trying to do better. The more we know, the better we do with that information. And just leaning into the things that make you feel alive, and finding that purpose and what matters to you. So I'm really passionate about this. I really think that this can make a massive difference in the world, changing people's diet and changing the food system. So I'm going to keep leaning into that and seeing where it takes me.
Please do. Please do. I always tell my guests there's never a wrong or right answer to that. I'm always curious as to their interpretation of their vision, their mission, their purpose, their why through our lens over here at Everforward.